Bitcoin dropped below $90,000 on Monday, only to be trading back above $100,000 48 hours later, largely on some macroeconomic data around CPI, but also on anticipation of everything Trump that's coming in just 4 days when he gets inaugurated. There is so much to unpack today. Very lucky to have Matthew Sigel here with me from VanEck to discuss everything macro, crypto, Bitcoin, and of course, what's coming in 2025. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. I'm going to bring on Matthew right now, the newly minted spokesperson for the entire crypto industry, the most famous person in crypto. I can't turn on my television or open my X feed without seeing you retweeted 97,000 times, your face on the news. Dude, you're the new sailor. You're our guy.
I don't think you want to be the main character in crypto. That's what I heard. So it's some accident.
I mean, I guess it's fair to ask that. Are you worried about Sailor's main characterness? Do you think that could go wrong for him?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are as they look at it. But I think we have a new main character, right? So we can play. We can go for best supporting actor when
Trump is the main character, bro.
Yeah, it's Trump. And holy shit, man. Sorry to use the S word, but this one I'm about to bring up, this rocked me. Trump receptive to include US-based coins in America First crypto reserve, from the New York Post. So we all know about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We all know that Lummis has said it's going to get crazy. She's going to be working on this in a matter of days. Bitcoin. Trump spoke at the Bitcoin conference, which last I checked is Bitcoin only, about a Bitcoin reserve. Can you imagine the smell in the crypto community if it becomes a crypto reserve for America First assets like XRP and Solana? What? Come on, man. Let's go.
Yeah, I can smell the XRP at $3. That's what it smells like. Look, when we present the investment case for digital assets to clients, we put Bitcoin in its own category. And the position size that we have, owning 10% of our own ETF, it's just the scale is beyond what it is for any single altcoin. So, I think the devil's in the details here. But if he's going to buy American crypto, why not Nvidia? Why not startups? Hey, why not subscribe to VanEck Ventures, our new seed stage venture fund? Right, the possibilities are limitless. I think it may be one of these negotiating tactics to just widen the Overton window on how friendly the administration can be if you create jobs and create intellectual property in America. We'll have to see. If it's a position size of 1/100th that of Bitcoin, then kind of what's the big deal? But if you start talking real numbers, it's surprising.
The big deal is that Bitcoin maximalists are literally going to stroke out and have to somehow intellectually accept that their Bitcoin only maxim is being violated by their God King.
Maxis get bloodied. That's what I say.
I mean, the more cynical view of everything that you just said is more people to raise funds from. I mean, the more the more that he pushes the crypto industry itself, the more he woos people back to the United States, the more fundraising and hype he gets. And by the way, that I don't think that's a negative thing. That's politics. But it seems like it would make a hell of a lot of sense for him unless he alienates and loses the Bitcoiners that we're supporting before, which I don't think would happen.
Yeah, I agree with your take.
Yeah, I think that maybe is a cynical view, but I think it's accurate. I mean, we saw the idea floated, although I never heard it from his mouth, that they would even eliminate capital gains taxes on American-based crypto projects and trades. I mean, things like that are just so astoundingly like bullish and catalyst for this industry. It's hard to even fathom if these things happen. But this is, I mean, it's just crazy to me. I want to, but here, let's go. VanEck, right? VanEck files prospectus for on-chain economy ETF. You just mentioned this, obviously, passively. I'll tell you the reason that he's not going to add NVIDIA as a reserve asset, though, is because the AI industry is not going to throw him a bunch of extra money. But yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about the on-chain economy ETF.
Yeah, thanks for noticing that prospectus that we filed yesterday. It's a preliminary prospectus, so things can change, but this strategy would be an actively managed ETF. That would be our first in the space, and it would invest in a combination of digital asset instruments. So these are crypto ETPs like Bitcoin and ETH and hopefully more. And then what we're calling digital transformation companies. So these would be equities of firms that are operating in blockchain infrastructure, digital payments, owning Bitcoin or other crypto. And yeah, like we think we have a passive fund in this space, DApp, DAPP, and given the size of the team and some of our success in some of the private liquid token funds, we're going to give a shot at creating some alpha here and running an active fund in the space.
Okay, so this gives us the opportunity to dig into the brain of VanEck and see what you guys think is proper allocations across the board in the crypto space, because you're going to be actively managing and we'll see how much of everything you put in. But are we talking about how far down the curve of Bitcoin and crypto adoption do we go? Is it, is PayPal in there because they have a stable coin, or is this primarily miners and MicroStrategy, sort of structurally what we've seen before? And is it leaving room, I guess, for Solana and XRP ETFs and all of those that come down the road?
We're taking a pretty wide view here. It's companies that either are active themselves in digital assets or those that sell into the digital asset ecosystem. So that can include energy companies, if they are specifically selling to miners. It can include data center companies that are kind of running hybrid strategies. Certainly exchanges, miners, hodlers. So it does not have to be a pure play to be owned in this strategy, but there has to be meaningful business and the prospects for growing in the space. I think this would be, it's going to be volatile. So it's not like a core, S&P replacement type holding. This is for folks who want exposure to the long tail of equities in the space. And just speaking from a macro perspective or bigger picture, there's going to be market cap growth in this space this year, if only from uplistings, right? We had Exodus already move from Canada onto the big board. There's probably going to be other names like that. CoinCheck just went public. That's a Japanese-owned exchange operating in the U.S. Circle's on the horizon. So I think there's going to be, bigger hunting ground here, and some people will want exposure to that.
Well, it's novel because it actually keeps the door open to adding things in the future that have not yet even, adopted a Bitcoin or a crypto strategy, which I think most ETFs don't have, right? Because I think we know that in 2025, a lot is coming. I think we're going to get, nation state adoption, according to Fidelity, multiple nation states. This will be the year. Sovereign wealth, but then, of course, just this corporate adoption following MicroStrategy or miners or any of these others that we've seen. I mean, Hunter from Bitwise tweeted this. I don't know if you saw this, but we just provided some information for a nation state asking about Bitcoin ETFs, considering moving some exposure from foreign currency government bonds into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is entering a new chapter. I mean, that doesn't mean it's happening, but like these conversations, we see them anecdotally every single day, right? I mean, how do you even handicap the tailwinds that we have right now? I want to have some bearish case. I want to not feel like the, new paradigm, Wall Street cheat sheet euphoria guy. But I mean, when you look at the news, everything aligned so perfectly. Trump's return to Washington kicks off flurry of crypto-related activities. IRS challenges focus on crypto debanking. I mean, we're getting an end to Operation Choke Point 2.0 and clarity on that. Probably we're getting a wholesale change at the SEC. We're probably going to see the Coinbase and Kraken actions disappear, right? I mean, what's stopping this?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to get too cute. I guess if there's one thing to be aware of, and I posted this on Twitter last night, the chart of the odds of a strategic Bitcoin reserve and the Bitcoin price are moving, in tandem, and each spike in Bitcoin has been connected to a spike in those odds. So, and speaking to other managers in the space, there's definitely a feeling it's a binary situation, that if a reserve is announced, Bitcoin goes up; if not, Bitcoin goes down. So I guess that's the cautious argument, but I agree with you. This is the year when everything is kind of lining up. There's just going to be so many headlines once the new administration takes office around the repeal of negative rules like SAB 121, enforcement resolutions, more support for deregulated energy markets, all of the things that turbocharge adoption. Yeah, thanks. You got the chart right there.
Yeah.
So when I saw last Friday the altcoin drawdown reach 35%, that is the largest altcoin correction post an election in the last 3 cycles. So
was 35% like on average across the board?
Yes.
Some went down 50, some went down 50. Okay.
Exactly.
So
we've got an index of alts that was down 35%,
okay.
and we're using the same methodology to track performance in 2020, 2016. This drawdown was larger than any of those, and it corresponded with funding rates going negative briefly, but that usually indicates that there's been deleveraging and some of the more speculative money's been washed out. Funding rates are still right around where they were at the election. So a lot of the optimism kind of came out from the short term, and I think that sets us up to move higher when these positive headlines start to hit in the new administration, with the caution being that the SBR is kind of a delaying option. The longer that doesn't happen, the more that people might latch onto that as a negative.
Yeah, so you got your bottom signals, basically. We had a larger drawdown than anticipated. Open interest crashed. Funding rates go negative. People are too bearish. Obvious counter trade. I mean, on Monday during the show, I literally bought Bitcoin and Solana while we were on Macro Monday, because it was during this show that it dropped below 90. And, Solana was hitting support. If you're looking at a chart on the 200 MA, it just seemed like a gratuitous buying opportunity. People were just way too bearish for what's coming, now, so my bearish case, I can't even call it a bearish case. I think it would be short term, but it echoes what you said. And I keep saying it. It's that I do feel like we're priced to perfection, because we've gotten all of his appointments and news and expectations of what will happen. So we are set up to have disappointments if crypto is not an immediate priority. Kind of along the lines of you saying, if we don't get an SDR.
Because I think for those who are watching the tape and the algos that are kind of trading, the red stickies on Bloomberg, the headlines, are they positive or negative for crypto? I think that the ratio of positive to negative is just going to be much better once the administration takes hold. So it's hard, of course, those could be sell the news type events, but when you add up how many are going to happen, I think, and as long as the market stays, reasonably stable, I have a hard time making a bear call.
Yeah, I think, to clarify, if we've seen reports that we get multiple executive actions, SAB 121, as you alluded to, the first day. Or if the first 100 days, we don't even see the strategic Bitcoin reserve brought up because they're arguing about immigration or another, or the war in Ukraine or something like that. Basically, just if we don't get the enthusiasm from the administration immediately. But to your point, I mean, you can just see that there's so many headlines. They're not going to just wholesale ignore crypto. I think these executive orders are already sitting there.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I should have mentioned that I think contributed to the sell-off to below 90 and is a whole lot of unlocks this week. There's like 3 billion worth of alts unlocks. Most of that is Ondo, but some reasonably well-held tokens also unlocking this week, and I think that was made the markets a bit jittery. We've seen from the past that those tend to be like by the news events, people position ahead of that. So that's why in the short term also we got a bit more confidence.
Yeah, and those unlocks are going to keep coming though, right? I 100% agree with you, but at this point, there's so many tokens either from last cycle that are now vesting 2 or 3 years later to VCs, or that have been waiting for the right conditions to launch, right? Where you're going to get the first 10 or 15% unlocked, that's going to be a persistent issue.
Yeah, for sure. Like last year's vintage of kind of high market cap, low float tokens. And we've talked about this many times that we really managed our position sizes around those because yes, when the market's going up, they're illiquid and they can move a lot, but on the down days, the drawdowns are just that much more severe when you're dealing with the high inflation of those types of tokens. But still, this week was particularly large in terms of the size of those unlocks.
You definitely get that mentality in either a bull or a bear market. If 20% of your tokens as a long-term investor are unlocking, you say, I still got 60% more. I'm just selling these. Like, no question, right? It's like an automatic sell, especially if you're representing investors or have some fiduciary duty. So generally, these do get sold off. Is basically what I'm saying. Yeah. That makes sense. So listen, we've talked about obviously the Bitcoin strategic reserve. I think what you said makes sense in the shorter term, but I think that would get absorbed even if we don't get the strategic reserve immediately. And I don't think it stops the bull run like, China ban in 2021, right? Or what are the ones that we've seen in the past. But we also have this state level sort of battle now for strategic reserves. Oklahoma introduces bill to establish Bitcoin as strategic reserve asset. Last Friday on Spaces, Dennis Porter on Crypto Town Hall announced that New Hampshire had launched basically the same initiative. I think we're up to 6 or 7 states now. I mean, and we have, Texas, he's out here saying we got to do this first. I saw, guys in Florida meeting with legislators. How important are state level strategic reserves? I mean, Texas is the 7th, I think, largest economy in the world. It's bigger than Canada. So we could talk about Canada getting a reserve, but Texas actually would be a bigger deal theoretically as far as just sheer asset size.
Yeah, I love the way that Texas is going about it, where they're not proposing to put any taxpayer money to work. They're just saying, hey, we'll accept taxes and other payments to the state in Bitcoin, and then we won't sell it for 5 years. That seems a good compromise because I do think that putting taxpayer money to work in the open market and buying Bitcoin raises a lot of political questions around who benefits and who doesn't, right?
You mean we shouldn't print money to buy Bitcoin?
Well, Bill Ackman has this idea to give every kid born in the US $7,000 a stock and kind of eliminate Social Security, but just set these kids up with a stake in US capitalism from the day they're born. I would say, well, why not give them $700 of Bitcoin as well, and then you can solve that political problem. But on the topic of the state legislation, I know there's been a lot of, I'll hate to put it mildly on X around what Dennis is doing, but I've attended one of these conferences with Dennis that attracted elected officials at the state level, treasurers and auditors, and he gets in the room with the right people, and it takes a different type of talking to deal with these lawmakers who are focused on the election cycle and their own political prospects. So I love this state level approach, and I think that our call is that at least one will be passed this year.
One would be good. I think it only takes one, although the second one is where the adoption happens. which we've seen with corporations as well. Like there's never been a second MicroStrategy. There hasn't been a second El Salvador yet, right? The first is not the catalyst. It's when it becomes a crowd, in my opinion, that everybody feels forced to do it. The exception being if the United States Central Bank or Fed does it, because if we get an SBR, everybody's going to have to do it.
Were you saying there isn't a second MicroStrategy, or there is?
I'm saying there's yet to be a second Michael Saylor. There's plenty of companies adding it to the balance sheet, but I don't know that we ever get another person who's that religious about the buying and what he's doing. But
yeah, fair enough. And on El Salvador, they do stand alone on the legal tender front, but there's 7 countries that are mining Bitcoin using government reserves.
Why doesn't anybody talk about that?
Nobody talks about it every time. 3 of them were last year, and all 3, Argentina, Ethiopia, Kenya, all have deals with the IMF. So you can really start to see a pattern here that when a country is over indebted and has to restructure their IMF loan, and the IMF comes in and tells them like, hey, you will roll over your debt, but you need to raise taxes, do this, do that, that becomes a political hot potato in that country. Who's ever the opposition, it's a great opportunity to say, hey, why are you selling out our country to these unelected bureaucrats? And Bitcoin becomes a third way to restore some sovereignty. So I think there's going to be definitely more countries that declare that they are mining Bitcoin. Actually, Russia, I would add to that list. They pretty much admitted it this year. They've been
Bhutan.
Bhutan's already on the list. Yeah, they were first. 35% of GDP is their Bitcoin stack.
They're small, but that's a pretty absurd number to see that it's done. By the way, the IMF doesn't give loans, guys. They give indentured servitude contracts. But if you think banks and credit cards are predatory, you should take a look at what the IMF's pulled off since the 1960s and 1970s around the world, in cahoots with the CIA and American corporations. But we don't need to go too far down that rabbit hole. I agree with what you said about Dennis, by the way. The guy is out there doing the work, right? And I think people just in this industry have a big problem with conflating the messenger with the message. And they literally, if they don't like somebody, it literally doesn't matter how much work they're doing. It dampens sort of the enthusiasm around all of it. But one state
back to our point on main characters, right? You want to avoid that.
Yeah, you definitely want to avoid being the main character. I do want to talk about MicroStrategy. We kind of alluded to it at the beginning. Like if we're talking about black swans, I don't think this is even possible. I don't know the math, but like if somehow Saylor blew up, that could be the thing that sort of puts a damper on the industry. This article saying MicroStrategy's preferred MSTR issuance seeks returns and volatility at 1.5x Bitcoin, Saylor says. Is that really what people who are buying these notes are looking for? I mean, is that the pitch?
Well, I think take a step back. They have very successfully innovated in the convertible bond market, and now MicroStrategy plus the Bitcoin miners are up to like 6 or 7% of the convertible bond index. So it's become a meaningful part of that market. You wonder like how much bigger they can get in that asset class. And so like innovating in another asset class, specifically these preferred securities that attract a different type of buyer, generally longer term, sticky money, is, I think it's a smart approach. It's a big market, multi-$100 billion market. And I think they're going to find a buyer, buyers for this paper. But that's a function of the fact that the convertible market is probably getting a bit tapped out, and the math is such. MicroStrategy has become so big that in order to increase the amount of Bitcoin per share, which is really the metric that matters for the valuation of that share, they need to buy more Bitcoin, and then it gets even more. It's not a linear relationship.
Yeah, people view it as an infinite money glitch, but you're offering the very obvious opposite side of that, which is that it becomes increasingly more difficult as the price goes up, basically, to keep the percentages afloat.
Exactly, and more dilution. So I think it's important to prove that there are buyers for these preferreds. I think there will be. So I don't think it's going to crash. But yeah, MicroStrategy is, the bigger things get, the harder it is for them to grow.
I was having an interesting conversation. Now it was on YouTube. I can't remember who it was with, but basically that, we kind of came to the conclusion that MicroStrategy stock was sort of the pre-ETF way to get exposure on the market. And by creating these convertible notes or fixed debt, this kind of instrument, he basically opened Bitcoin now to insurance companies and a whole other huge wall of money that couldn't even buy MicroStrategy stock really, to get exposure to Bitcoin. So as much as we talk about the performance of it or whatever, I think he really just tapped a market that, even if it's a small percentage of it, wanted exposure to Bitcoin, still couldn't, even with the ETFs and MicroStrategy or individual equities. And now by giving them the convertible note, it's just like another way for another sort of, swath of investors to get access they couldn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Selling volatility
Brilliant.
is how he describes it.
It's absolutely brilliant. What's the end game? Be a bank? Be a Bitcoin bank? Bitcoin financial services?
I noticed that Coinbase today just reinstituted their Bitcoin lending program. So even US holders of Bitcoin on the Coinbase platform can now borrow against it through a partnership with Morpho. So this is I think it's a non-custodial solution. We know how that ended last time with most of the centralized balance sheets, BlockFi, Celsius, Alameda, FTX, et cetera, going bankrupt. But in order to get Bitcoin, to where we think the price target, where we think it's going to go long term, which is on par with gold, there does need to be a market, for leverage, and that's part of financial services. So I think, as you alluded to, at some point, MicroStrategy is going to look to. I mean, they already are monetizing it, right, by using it as collateral for these fixed income securities. Yeah.
I had this conversation this morning with Bill Barheit from Abra. Just casually, I text him. I probably text him at like 5:30 in the morning his time because I'm an asshole. But I was like, hey, now that you guys are kind of restructured or whatever, like, what does Bitcoin lending look like right now? Say Bitcoin's 100 grand and you got 10 Bitcoin that you want to take a loan against. What's the LTV? What's your liquidation price, et cetera, and went through this whole thing, and I had no idea that Coinbase was doing that. But right now, this is the reason I think this is going to be so big, is because nobody in their right mind wants a mortgage. If you can even get one. People in crypto generally have some sort of tax efficient structure of trusts and such that they can't get a mortgage anyways because they're not showing the personal income necessary on there. So I literally called him. I said, hey, if not that I am, but if I wanted to buy a house, what does this look like versus a mortgage? And it's actually pretty much, it's more attractive. It's like an 8% interest rate.
Mortgage rates just hit 7% yesterday.
7.13 or something 2 days ago, right? On a 30-year mortgage. So I guess the question is, are we at the point where you can safely do it and not worry about the counterparty risk? Coinbase seems like that's making that more realistic. I wonder if your loan is insured.
Yeah, I haven't dug into it. I just saw the headlines and saw it's a partnership with Morpho, which is DeFi platform. So I think the Coinbase liability will be lower, but need to read the docs on that.
Damn it, Matt! I forgot one of our main topics. So
okay.
Yeah, I got to keep you for a couple more minutes. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Prediction: Moody's downgrade post January 20th. This is huge prediction, right? So Moody's threatens U.S. sovereign rating again ahead of election. Debt dynamics will be increasingly unsustainable and inconsistent with AAA rating. Okay, this could be problematic for markets.
Yeah, we are. Jan VanEck, CEO here, has been really worried about the fiscal situation. And when you read what Moody's and S&P are saying about it, and this is not just the U.S., but for all the countries that they cover the sovereign debt, when the interest payments as a percentage of tax revenues surpasses 20%, then the light starts flashing red. And the US just passed that this year. So I think they've been telegraphing that this is going to happen. I also think that Moody's is a little bit political, and they may have been holding this in the back pocket for when Trump takes office, because it's more convenient. And this will be one of the headlines in the first couple months. I think is going to be one of these downgrades.
What does that? What does that mean for Bitcoin? Right, since we're at a Bitcoin show, do all market? I'm assuming this is because of our endless debt ceiling debates and the kind of nonsense that Moody sees every time, we get into the political process of trying to figure out what this looks like. We probably should be downgraded.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reflection of this concept of fiscal dominance. And fiscal dominance is when your debt is so high and your interest payments are so high that monetary policy becomes ineffective. If you have inflation and you raise rates, you just increase the size of that interest burden, and it causes a very uncomfortable cycle. And I think that is becoming consensus in some parts of the market. It's certainly part of the reason why China and many of the BRICS have slowed down their pace of treasury purchases, have pivoted more to gold. I think that's part of the reason that we're bullish on Bitcoin and you're bullish on Bitcoin, is that it's an alternative for some of the countries that historically have just stuck with U.S. debt. Kind of depends on what markets have done in the lead up to a headline around a debt downgrade. My guess would be it'd be like short-term negative for all risk assets, but that Bitcoin would act perhaps a little bit better. Similar to what we saw like when Silicon Valley Bank failed.
Sure. Yeah. That was like the best unintentional trade of my life, or one of them, was when Silicon Valley Bank news hit and there was FUD around USDC. I sold my USDC into Bitcoin immediately just in case, thinking Bitcoin would probably drop on the news, and Bitcoin went from like 19 to 20.
Yeah, Scott, you should come work for us. That's exactly what we did. It was on a weekend. We bought ETH, but we got
it was like Saturday.
USDC, and it was like, hey, if there's 6% upside on USDC and a lot more than that on ETH. So
yeah, we jumped from 19 to 25, like basically overnight on Bitcoin, and still holding it. So thank God I got myself out of those dirty, stinky US dollars. Listen, I have one question from the audience before I let you go.
Okay.
Scott asked if when VanEck will add 1 to 2% of crypto in all or some of its mutual funds ETFs. It's a great question.
Yep, it is. I'd say if there's one thing I was disappointed by most last year, it was in regards to these Bitcoin ETFs, the wirehouses, the big bank-owned brokerages, Morgan Stanley's, Merrill Lynch's, UBS's, they've all been somewhat slower to adopt the Bitcoin ETFs than I would have thought. Their strategists have not really put out the new wrinkles on the 60-40 model that would include an explicit weighting to Bitcoin. And so their financial advisors don't really have the cover to go out and be like, hey, instead of 60-40, do 60-39-1. So in the face of that disappointment, we've really turned up the dial on these model portfolios that can be sold directly to allocators. And we have some very diversified funds that now own, somewhere between 1% and 5% in Bitcoin. And that's one of the fastest growing parts of our business. Jan has recently hired several more people to help kind of populate those models. We think it's a great chance for us to gain market share against the legacy guys who have these innovators dilemma. And yeah, we're not going to add it to all of the mutual funds and ETFs, but if you look at some of our real asset and inflation protection ETFs, you'll find Bitcoin weights in there, and they're being managed tactically. We're looking at the volatility as a way to size the position, and you'll see more of that this year.
Awesome. Matthew, thank you so much for your time. I know we ran a little bit over. I love what you do, and you put things into a perfect perspective and actually have data. It's a nice thing instead of just some wild opinions. But I think personally it's going to be a great year. It's funny. Somebody here said that the election is a buy the rumor, sell the news. I thought that, but I think we just did that.
Same.
I think that was Monday, right? A week ahead of the election. So I don't think that guy's wrong, but I think that's what happened. Guys, you can give Matthew a follow on X. Please do. He's great. It's Matthew_Sigel, Sigel, as you can see it right there. And Matt, look forward to speaking soon and hopefully seeing you soon.
Catch you later, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and move on to the next part of the show. I didn't think Dan was going to be here. You had connectivity issues.
Yeah, shaky internet yesterday, but looks good to go today.
He's here, and that's all that matters. So, listen, we've what a time to be alive since we spoke last.
Yeah,
right? Kind of alluded to it at the beginning, but we did the Bitcoin goes to sub 90 on Monday, and it's trading at 100 2 days later.
Yeah, it's that continued lack of acceptance under that $92,000 level. And anytime you keep breaking a level with no follow through, you start to scout a wedge. So this is a potential daily falling wedge on Bitcoin that I'm keeping an eye on. And oftentimes wedges turn into head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders. And so, if we reject here and pull back, the best case for the bulls would be to confirm the daily uptrend to break that resistance level. But essentially, we got to have that trend change, because what we did last time is, again, that V shape. But if you're not establishing many supports on the way up, it's easy to retrace a lot of that move, as we saw. And so, again, you just want that healthy daily higher low. Give us a new base so we can move on from this $92,000 to $90,000 level and have a new level. That's the goal for the bulls here. And again, overall, there are no red flags. Weekly EMA 12 keeps holding. This is an attempt to be a bull flag as the dip keeps being bought.
I mean, does this, we have to see how the day closes, but does the rejection, so to speak, here at 100 concern you all? I mean, I kind of have it at 99,860 is a level I had, from that high. Obviously tested it quite a few times, but if we close back below 100 or 99,860, any of that, is it even on your radar, or is it not a big deal yet?
I mean, we're still paying attention to that resistance, but again, even if we straight up just ran and broke it, it wouldn't be enough for me, just because I need this daily trend change to confirm. We need to pull back, get that higher low, and then follow through. And again, just comparing to NASDAQ, the NASDAQ's doing the exact same thing on the daily chart with its attempt at a falling wedge. And again, it's still, potentially forming a daily lower high here. So no red flags. Just ensure that if we do start retracing more significantly, you don't want to give back more than half of that move, ideally, which is the $95,000 level. So in an ideal world, pull back, find a daily higher low, 96 or better, ideally 95 or better, and then confirm that trend change to get over where we just topped out, 101 essentially, and that previous top, 103. That would be smooth sailing, ideal scenario.
Got it. Perfect. So then what does that look like for you in context of everything else happening? I mean, I think we have a potentially volatile period coming.
Definitely. The dominance chart weekly is just tightening up nicely. And in an ideal world, what I would love to see, just in terms of previous patterns and how it has played out in the past, is if Bitcoin confirms this bull flag here, and obviously all eyes are on Monday, is it a sell the news event into Trump and what's going on there? The harder we run, the more likely to be a sell the news. So for example, I mean, today's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If we, just go straight up for 3 days from here, then it's more likely to be a sell the news. If we establish a daily higher low, then it's less likely. But just be aware, if Trump doesn't give us something on day one that satisfies the mob, then we can see short-term weakness in response to that. But back to my statement, in an ideal world, I want a Bitcoin bull flag, 100 to 10,000 plus, and then the dominance chart to collapse, breaking bearish from this pattern, showing us altcoins getting a big time leg up. And that would be the healthiest crypto environment, in my opinion, if it were to play out like that.
I agree. And it was interesting because obviously we all talk about the Bitcoin pump yesterday on the CPI, right? Which is just kind of hilarious. But altcoins did actually outpace Bitcoin on that move yesterday. So Bitcoin dominance was dropping while Bitcoin was going up. So that does sort of show this slight appetite for risk alongside stocks that maybe leaks into the altcoin market a little more in a move like that.
Yeah, it's the Trump play, in the sense that XRP and all these coins that are hoping to benefit from Trump, they're definitely a large part that the dominance is dropping here in the short term. And XRP just perfection on that weekly bull flag as well. And the good news is, Bitcoin's weekly chart looks more like XRP than it does a ton of the other altcoins. And it's just that retracement. That retracement was maybe 40% into the continuation bull flag. A ton of altcoins retraced 50 to 60%. They have a much different setup. But again, Bitcoin at this point on its weekly chart, from the last leg up that we saw, its retracement is a bit more comparable. It's still at that 382, 40% roughly area. And so that is a bull flag until proven otherwise, which is a comfortable spot to be in as a bull.
Yeah. So what are you looking at in the stock market now then?
Coin's a potential daily falling wedge as well. We have MSTR tightening up. MSTR had a little relative strength in the sense that, Bitcoin and the NASDAQ both dropped to a lower low here and MSTR did not. But I just love these tightening ranges. Here's a new daily lower high being set. And now we're going to look for a higher low compared to 303. And this tightening range will break at some point next week. But I love these equilibriums that tighten up just in terms of, the ability to position. And again, at this point, we're watching for daily higher lows to be the result of any pullbacks from this level. And again, we just got to break bull. Just have to ensure that the tightening range breaks bull if we're going to try and head back up to the next resistance zone. But again, it's, just give me that daily uptrend. That's what it all boils down to on Bitcoin. I don't care if you pull back here. Just give me a healthy daily high or low. Don't retrace 60, 70%. Because if we do, then we're going right back to that 90,000 level again. We got to establish new supports in addition to this 90,000 level.
Yeah, we don't want to go there again. Not after that. Like, we got the reaction we wanted, right? That dip below 90, huge buying, tons of standing orders, that crazy daily candle, but that liquidity is gone now.
Yeah, this is a 12-hour.
89 is not going to have the same reaction again, if it goes down there.
Yeah, I want to see a 12-hour higher low and just, prevent too significant of a retracement. You want to see hourly oversold if we get there, get bought significantly. Let's see, if we were to hit to hourly oversold, would be roughly around the 96s. So yeah, you wouldn't want to dip more than hourly oversold. So if we were to head to hourly oversold, that needs to mark a 12-hour or daily higher low in an ideal world if the bulls are going to remain confident.
I guess the stock market just opened because the Bitcoin chart, obviously, good times. Good times. I know that I do believe Bitcoin is an uncorrelated asset, but indisputable that the actual bulk of the quick price action happens at the market opens, closes these days.
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned last time, it's such a difference. The correlation between 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. is completely different than everything else, and so you have to view it in two things. One more thing I want to point out. This was the quantum stock that I talked about last week. This is just an example of why I love to play bounces and have a bull lean. Obviously, markets go up over time. That's one reason to have a bull lean. But just mathematically speaking, this short, massive drop, 75% dump over the span of 4 days. This bounce in 2 days exceeded that gain, significant, or that maximum amount you can gain as a bear. This little dinky bounce in comparison has more of a gain, and that's why oversold bounces are one of my edges as a trader, just because of when things get extreme, even just the smallest little bounce is very worthwhile. So just real quick on these quantum names, next thing I'm looking for is a 4-hour higher low. But again, just the volatility in these things. Yesterday I traded $4 billion. So the volume, the liquidity, and the volatility is a day trader's dream.
If you're short, if you're shorting something, you can only go to zero.
Yeah, it's the best non-leveraged short in history is 100% gain, and obviously stocks and everything, they do that in a couple of weeks in bull markets. So that's my pitch for playing bounces. Yeah,
and it's also unless you're a very, very, very experienced trader, that's why I hate the notion so much of I'm going to sell some to buy lower.
Yeah, it's definitely. This kind of volatility eats you alive. It eats professionals alive that aren't on their discipline. So definitely need a lot of experience if you're going to be slinging in that kind of environment.
So what do you think happens with the inauguration? I'm not talking about up, down, whatever, but do you think it's going to just be extreme volatility, and do you think it's going to last?
I think it's going to be volatility. I think it's honestly, I don't know. And that's one thing that,
Agreed.
Professionals and people
it's fine.
Admit it. It's so often my answer, and that is okay. The key is, I'll be even positioning myself in a trade and won't know. But the key is, position, sell a little bit, get your break even, put your stop loss, and then your I don't know can play out. And sometimes it'll give you a big win, and then sometimes ideally it's just a small loss. And again, it's just so often that's the answer. And I do not know, again, it's a bull flag on Bitcoin. And so the burden is on bears to prove to me that it's not a bull flag. So I default bullish, and XRP hitting higher highs is definitely helping things. So staying bullish. But again, as far as, I don't really care about the next 3 days, what's going to happen. It'll be entertaining. The stock market's closed on Monday, so crypto will be doing its own thing to a certain degree. Wow. But I don't know the short-term reaction.
Yeah, we get an inauguration without the market open, but crypto telling us exactly what to look for. It's going to be wild. I have to say, XRP, like, I don't ever view things as missed opportunities because it's like, it's like a bear shitting in the woods. I have no idea if it's happening, right? Or but XRP is pretty crazy. I have to say, because I had the alarm set. I even shared it like in my newsletter and stuff on the breakout, and I just didn't buy it. And I was it's tricky. Like, it was right there. I did it like we talked about it on the show. And I was like, hey man, this thing is really breaking out over like the longest resistance ever. Multiple touches, consolidated. And it was all the signs were there except for the like, why would XRP go up 7x sign?
Yeah. and even it's showing us the bull characteristics where, again, first 15-minute oversold on that pop, marked a 4-hour higher low into continuation, and it's just an ideal setup. But again, it's the kind of thing where we watch so many things that there's tons of missed opportunities, and the beautiful thing about markets is as long as those numbers keep flashing away, there will always be another opportunity. Yeah,
especially once Trump starts to make meme coins strategic reserve assets. Anyways, we got chart guys. Give him a follow, of course, as always. I brought Matt up, so now I'm going to bring yours up so they can actually see it. I want them to see it so they can do it. Look, this is how you follow him right here. See, chart guys. You guys see it?
Thanks.
Go do it. I want to see I don't even see the number going up. It's weird. It's awkward for me because it should be going up in real time. Give him a follow. Check out his YouTube. Great educational content. And like, you just always seem like the happiest guy and really even. And it's just nice to not have someone on here screaming at the chart.
I try my best. It's required if you're a professional trader, for sure.
It absolutely is. Well, man, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully see you next week.
Thanks, Scott. I look forward to it.
Yeah, guys, I'll be on Spaces, of course, 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in about 25 minutes, and back tomorrow with the Friday 5 with Nathaniel Whittemore, NLW. All right, guys, thank you. Bye.
Let's go.